Welcome to the IDK podcast, episode 3. We're going to be talking today with a good friend of mine, Wally, about crystals, gems, and stones. We're going to be covering a little bit about the types, the colors, the shapes, purposes. Do you need to cleanse them? Do you have to put them out in moonlight? In order to do that, clearing and programming them with intention for very specific things. And so I will let Wally take a minute and just introduce himself, give us a little bit of background about his experience with crystals, how long he's been working with them, and just introduce himself.
Well, I've been a eclectic witch for about 30 years now, practicing. I've started working with crystals and stones about 20 years ago,
Okay.
and when I started doing it, it just seemed to be extremely complex. And I just fumbled through it and came up with my own way that makes it a little easier to deal with and a lot less complicated.
hmm Okay. So what types of crystals are there? Because I know I have quite a few around me. I have some fluorite, I have some lapis and things like that. But do say, I don't know, clay. If you pull clay out of the earth, which I know is not, a stone, but it's an element, I guess, right? Does that have its own purpose, its own energy? What are the different types and how does that work?
Well, clay's a little unique because you can actually mold that to purpose with your hands. Okay, you can't mold a stone to purpose with your hands.
Right.
You have to use some sort of mechanical device to shape it or shine it up or whatever.
Mm.
But basically, it falls into the same category as rocks. Okay.
Okay.
Rocks are going to be something like this, just a piece of little gravel, bedrock, granite, marble, something that doesn't allow light and doesn't have a lot of sheen in it naturally. Rocks are kind of like a bucket with a bunch of small holes at the bottom. You can fill them up and it'll seep out.
Okay.
It won't pour out, it'll seep out, but it'll seep out a lot faster than something a little more structured like an agate or a calcite or a jade of some kind. Those are going to have a little bit more color in them. They're going to have a little natural sheen to them, but they're still not allowing light. Think of these as a bucket with even smaller holes.
Yep.
So that the energy leaks out over a longer period of time.
Mm.
Then you have crystals, which are going to be your clearer ones. They're going to be a lot more glass looking. Okay, those think of as having very, very minor holes at all, where you almost have to force the water out of the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're trying to figure out what you're doing with the energy work and using stones and crystals, they all act like a battery and a conduit. Okay, so they can store energy. Obviously, a rock is not going to store it as long as a crystal will, because this is going to seep out a lot easier. So when you're dealing with something like trying to find a way to deal with anxiety or fear or negativity, you can actually use just a regular rock is a better option to put that into and then cast out in the environment, and we'll go over that in a little bit, than you would a piece of crystal. Okay. So that's the three basics. Don't focus on the name. The name is given by science. Okay, scientists don't care what the stone was intended for, what the ancients used them for.
Right.
They just want to have their particular name on that type of stone.
Right. Yeah, we like to label things basically. And
well, I mean, when you get into it, all stones are listed by their carbon factors. Okay, because that's pretty much everything. So it's their geological makeup. Their elemental makeup is what determines if it's a piece of jade or a piece of calcite. We don't need to be that technical when we're dealing with energy.
Right.
Okay, it's adding more levels to it. I mean, it's like you're finding one specific type of stone to do a job when there are 1,000 stones out there that'll do the same job.
Right.
So when it comes to that kind of thing, I don't get that technical with the definition of the actual names. Yeah, a lot of them are known, like fluorite, quartz, the jades themselves, the calcites, the agates, the opals. But like I said, figuring out whether you're dealing with a rock, a stone or a crystal is what you need to do first.
Okay.
Okay. So, like I said, pick it up. If it has a lot of weight to it, doesn't have a lot of coloring in it, doesn't have a lot of sheen in it, then it's more than likely going to be a rock. River
Mm-hmm.
stones, granite out of your driveway, chunks of marble, clay. Um, doesn't have to do with the hardness, it's just the type.
Mm-hmm.
Then you move into your stones, which actually have more color, they have their natural sheen,
Mm-hmm.
and these are going to act as a better conduit. So you can
So,
actually charge them up with a specific purpose.
like, so for example, right? If you have like a hunk of, I don't know, bedrock, whatever,
Yeah,
or even just gravel for that, for instance, right? So it's just a solid color,
yeah,
and it is what it is. When you take something like a lapis, so like I have a
yeah,
pretty good hunk of lapis here.
yeah.
This
And
is
lapis shows a
uh,
lot of
it's
light and
almost
a
like a
lot of color.
combination between a crystal and
Yeah.
a stone, correct?
So and you're going to find those overlays all through it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But like I said, once you cut that down, you get a lot of color, you get a lot of sheen in it, where a piece of granite doesn't have that much sheen
Right.
when it's first cut.
I actually think it'd be really cool to get like a count. I bet you'd be really expensive, but it'd be cool to get a countertop made out of lapis.
Well, I mean,
It'd be pretty
it
slick,
could be done, but you would have to have a jeweler do it instead of a granite guy.
right?
Because that jeweler's going to have to fit it in and make sure all the lines are working the right way, where the granite guy just cuts a big slab.
Right. And then you have, something that's more transparent, like a
Yeah,
fluorite, right? Or,
that's in that crystal range.
right. I also have I have a selenite
Yeah, and again, it's
as
in that
well.
crystal range. It's
Hmm.
going to allow a lot of light transfer,
It's
where your
interesting.
stones don't let too much light transfer through.
It's interesting because when I think about it on the surface, I think, okay, a stone that is more translucent, like would I think like, oh, this would hold less energy than say something that's more dense, like gravel or a stone like that. But yet, when they, electronics, a lot of times, we store information and energy in crystal, not stone.
Well, it's
So,
because of the frequency rate.
mhm,
Your gravel, your stone, your rocks are going to have a much lower frequency rate than a piece of stone.
right.
That's going to have a lower frequency rate than a crystal.
Hmm.
So when it comes to the type of work you want to do, they'll all hold energy,
Right.
but it's how they're used that really
Mhm.
makes a difference.
Do you
I mean,
think?
if you're trying to set yourself up with a protection talisman
Yeah.
and you use a rock,
Right.
it's not going to be anywhere near as effective as a crystal.
Do you think that the more like non-crystalline type stones are better for like grounding and like root chakra type stuff, like earthly things and protection because they're so dense like that and so heavy?
They are and they aren't. Again, it depends on what you're trying to do with it. If you're
Hmm.
looking for something that you want to store a lot of energy in for a specific use,
Yep.
then you want to use a crystal.
Okay.
If you're looking for something that you want as an everyday talisman or tool,
Right.
then you're probably looking for a stone.
Hmm.
And if you're looking for something, like I said, mainly the main thing I use the rocks for is to get rid of negativity,
Hmm.
to take that negativity out of myself or out of others.
Hmm.
And I fill the rock up with that, and then I can cast it out into the environment and let the environment absorb that negativity,
Hmm.
which it does a lot easier because it's a much bigger organism.
Yeah. It's almost like I just got this visual of like skipping a stone across a pond,
Exactly.
right?
It's those little rings that come
Hmm.
out.
Yep.
By throwing that into the environment, not burying it. If you bury it, you contain it.
Right.
You just want to scatter it out.
Right. Right.
And after about a month, the negativity that you stored in here
Mhm.
will actually seep out through the environment without causing any major damage.
Right.
And this stone can be used again in a month.
Right.
So these are much more reusable, okay, as far as something like that goes.
Now, what are your thoughts on the shape of stones? So, like, I see there's some people I follow on Instagram that have metaphysical shops and they sell, stones that are cut to look like pyramids, that are cut to look like,
Well,
all these different shapes. Is
when
there
it
a
when it comes to the
purpose?
geometry of it,
Yeah.
anything that comes to a point is going to be a focus of energy. It is
Hmm.
much easier to send energy out of that crystal than it would be this stone.
Right.
Okay.
Because it's going to focus down.
Exactly. It's the
Gotcha.
way you use it, the way you envision the energy coming through it. Okay?
Is it? But does it work in the opposite too? Because if you think of a pyramid, right? Is that to like? Do people cut these things into a pyramid shape with the intention of trying to harness down through it, or?
Well, the harness is at the base, and
Okay.
then they bring it in through the center and up, almost like a fountain.
Okay.
So when you see those pyramids cut like that, it's where they're placed and what
Right.
intent was put in them to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you're dealing with something like your selenite, where it's a wand almost,
Right.
that would be excellent tool for a healer who's trying to direct energy flow to a specific injury.
Right.
Okay, to re-energize, reinvigorate that area.
Mm-hmm.
When you're dealing with someone who's looking for divinity,
Yep.
all right, a sphere makes you focus all of your attention and energy on the object. Okay, so
In a very balanced way, I would
exactly,
imagine too, right?
exactly. That's
Yeah.
why they come up with these things called witch balls that are supposed to mesmerize a witch.
Right. Is that like a crystal ball?
Well, a lot of times it's just a painted metal ball,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's the same principle. It's a sphere that focuses in. The
Mm.
old crystal balls, it was the sphere that helped them focus what they were looking for.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so though there are some reason to the shapes, but unless you're needing specifically a shape, if
Right.
you're just looking for a general tool, you don't have to worry so much about the shape.
Yeah. Because I always thought that, like, whenever I've seen stuff like that, it's like, oh, whatever shape appeals to you is cool. Like, one thing I thought was interesting was this, Instagram account that I follow. They sell selenite daggers. I mean, they're actually like shaped into a blade.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's really cool. And they said they use them for like cutting cords of like negativity and cutting through bullshit, like literally. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then somebody else that I know said, oh, you don't ever want to like shape a crystal into a weapon because it goes against kind of like what they're designed to do.
Okay. Let me give you a really good analogy. I can use a hammer to build something with,
Mm-hmm.
or I can club somebody to death with it.
Right.
It's the intent of the user, not
Right.
the tool.
Right.
So
right.
if I have an athame or a knife made of crystal,
Mm.
it has a point to it which helps me direct energy.
Right.
Okay. It does have an edge to it that will help you cut ties. Okay.
Mm.
So you can cut negative energy anchors with it.
Right.
Not something that everyone needs.
Right. Right.
When you get something like that, it's more of an aesthetic. And there's nothing wrong with it being an aesthetic.
They look badass. They look badass.
if you can get an obsidian dagger,
Right.
it's more about the aesthetics. It
Right.
doesn't make it any better or worse for protection
Right.
just because it's in the form of a weapon.
Well, and I think too, probably like, so if you're going to work with an obsidian and that's a shape that sort of speaks to you, like I love Japanese stuff, for
Yeah.
example. So some of these look like Japanese short swords, but
Exactly.
they're selenite, they're obsidian, whatever they are.
Yeah.
And I always thought, oh, that'd be really cool to have something like that, because it does have sort of like, I guess I would sort of like love it more than just a regular stone.
Well, this is just a piece of black obsidian, okay?
Yeah.
It's a crystal. It's going to help you with protection. It's going to help you as a shielding agent. That dagger will do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do it better or worse.
Right.
It's the aesthetics of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just comes down to preference of what you want.
Exactly. And
wanna
that's
have.
something that you need to separate from what you're looking to do with the stones.
Right.
Okay. If you say I want a stone that I can do this with, and you happen to find one that's in a shape you really like,
Right.
great. Now, if you're wanting something as a healing crystal,
Mhm.
where you're going to use it on somebody else,
Right.
then something with a point to it gives you a lot better focus and
Mhm.
precision when you're using that energy.
Do you think for healing there's any difference at all between a raw uncut stone and a polished? Does it make
Again,
any difference at all?
it's all about aesthetics when it comes
Okay.
to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and your intention, right?
Now, if you want to put a point on it,
Mm-hmm.
that will help focus.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only thing outside of the aesthetics I would look for. If you find a natural crystal point
Right.
and it's one that appeals to you and makes you think of healing, because we need to break this myth of it has to be this stone to do this job, to do this job.
Right.
There are a million stones out there that'll work for any job. It's more about how you see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The ancients didn't know what Amazonite was.
Right.
They didn't know what quartz was. All they knew is that stone held energy and they found a way to use it.
Right.
That's what I've gone back to.
Which is interesting because I've done some research a little bit into, like, I had this. I was thinking about Egypt one day, and I was looking at all this, hieroglyphs and all this different artwork and all these different things, and I had some information that came to me, and I was like, hey, the jewelry that people wore, whether it was around their throat, whether it was their wrist, whether it was their crowns, the people who frequently wore crowns were either royalty or priests, right? But the placement of the gems was very, very particular. And I
Yeah.
always looked at that and I thought, I wonder, we know that gold is a good conduit of energy and electricity. And then you have these different stones that are intentioned for different things. Did crowns serve a bigger purpose than just decoration and a status symbol? Did they amplify the ability for those priests and those kings to receive information, from the
Or
divine?
transmit.
Yeah.
So, yes, I could see that going either way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they weren't put on there just because they look good.
Right.
They were made to look good and then put in place as a tool.
Yeah, and it made me. I mean, not to like, we could go so far down a rabbit hole with this, but it made me think like, everything has multiple purposes and multiple meanings, even if people don't understand them, right?
Yeah.
So then I was thinking about like the gold standard and how governments just started hoarding all the gold, right, and things like that. And it's like, if word got out that gold is something that could allow you to get further in touch with the divine, it would make sense that people in power and control would want to hoard it as much as they can so that you wouldn't discover that the old way of doing things actually served a purpose and it wasn't just ceremony. You know what I mean? But that's a whole nother.
Honestly, that brings up platinum. Okay?
That's a whole nother conversation.
Platinum was even rarer of a material. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that was seen as even more precious.
Right.
But gold was rare enough, but still abundant enough that you could get a lot of it.
Right.
And still not everybody have it. And by the way, when it comes to metals, they all fall in the same category as a stone.
Mm-hmm.
They're a really good battery, and most of them will actually react to purpose better than rocks will. Okay? The only exception is silver. Silver is silver is a transition metal. It'll take and release energy at the same time.
Right.
So it doesn't really hold energy as well.
Yep.
But it's great for doing work with.
I've always
when
been
you
drawn
combine
to
that-
silver.
Yeah, well, I mean, most people are drawn to silver, but we've had it beat in our head that gold's better, and it's not.
I mean, I wear gold. I wear a gold cross and a chain just because it's a friend of mine who passed away.
Yeah.
And I wear it just for that purpose. But I never have worn gold in my entire life. I've always worn silver. So,
Well, like I said, silver lets you take in and release energy almost simultaneously. Gold is going to hold it.
right.
So right now, that's more of a memory charm on you
Yeah, absolutely.
because it's charged with that memory and it's going to stay there for a long time.
Right.
You may actually put it in a drawer tomorrow, not see it for 10 years, and as soon as you pick it up, that'll come back to you.
Yeah, that comes flooding back in. Yeah, I don't even take it off. Like, I actually need to figure out. I need to get it repaired because there's a part in it's like a rope chain.
Yeah.
There's a part in the rope where it's starting to come undone. So it's at some point it's gonna break. But I need to get it fixed. But yeah, so I mean, this is literally the only gold thing that I wear. In fact, my dad has gifted me, like, I have this It's huge. I have a gold nugget. It's a nugget
Yeah,
ring, pinky ring. My family's Italian. My
yeah.
dad gifted me a gold pinky nugget ring and was like, "This is now yours." And I was like, "I can't wear that. It's too gaudy. It's too. I mean, it's literally like kiss the ring. It's that big, right?" And so I've never been into the gold thing, but yeah,
Well,
when
like I
I
said, if you do more work with energy, then silver's going to be more appealing to you.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, so what what are your thoughts on the on just the colors? So my background, I'm trained in Reiki. My wife is trained in Reiki, and there are some people who do Reiki with crystals, and usually the stone colors match up to the different chakras. So you have, red for the root chakra, and then you go up all the colors of the rainbow all the way to the crown. You know, what is your experience with that? Like, I've always wondered, like, does it really make a difference or not? Because when I've done Reiki, I've not used crystals and I've had just as much success, I suppose, as anybody who uses the crystals. So I didn't really understand why they make a difference,
It
but
depends
they
on the
do.
user. It depends on the user.
Mhm.
Okay. So when I use crystals, they are an extension. They're a tool of me.
Right.
I find it easier to do things with them than without them.
Okay.
That is my personal preference.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to. Do you feel more comfortable using them?
Hmm.
When it comes to the colors of crystals and stones and the chakras and all of that, I break all of them down into four elements. Okay? You've got your earth, your water, your fire, and your air. Okay? And we know their fifth element is spirit or energy. Well, that's you.
Hmm.
So, your colors that are going to relate to all four of those elements. Okay? Like your blacks, your uh, dark golds, uh, your really dark greens. These are mainly earth. And again, you're going to have overlaps in between them.
Sure.
So when you think of earth, what do you think of? Grounding, protection,
Hmm.
security.
Yep.
That's where those come in. Prosperity. Okay? When you go into water, that's more transition. So
Hmm.
your blues, your light purples, you know, exactly.
Yep.
Your lighter greens, those are going to be, I would choose something like that if I was looking to go in between two places.
Okay.
So like if I was looking to promote prosperity in my life, I'd say, okay, I'm here, this is where I would want to go, and I would use a stone from the water category.
Hmm.
Okay? Or a crystal from the water category to help me get there.
Right on.
When you go into fire, you're talking about passion, you're talking about heart, you're talking about healing.
Hmm.
So those stones that you see relating to the chakra wind up relating because of a reason.
Hmm.
Okay? The only odd one in the chakra to me is the green with the heart.
Right.
And that can be explained as green is prosperity. Your heart is the prosperous part of your body.
Hmm.
Without it, you're not going anywhere. So I can see where green would relate in prosperity aspect
Hmm.
of that. Uh, but like I said, people they try and break things down by the stone name. Don't worry about the stone name.
Right.
If you're looking for healing, any red or yellow stone will help you with that.
Hmm.
If you're looking for clarity, any lighter color stone or lighter color crystal or stone or any kind of quartz is going to help with clarity. Now, you can
Hmm.
break it down a little farther. If you want clarity and love, then you're looking for something in the heart shape, in the heart range. So you're looking in that pink, red. So that's why rose quartz is
Rose
often
quartz. Yeah.
associated with love.
Hmm.
So, but it's not to hold love, it's to find it.
Right.
If you want to hold it, get a ruby.
Hmm. It's interesting because he doesn't know this, but my one son, we actually took a rose quartz, a pretty sizable chunk of it, and stuck it between his box springs and his mattress where he lays, so it would
Uh
be
huh.
directly underneath his heart. Not because he was, um, hurt in a relationship or anything like that, but it was just like any kind of like, hey, give me a hug, or just show of affection.
Yeah.
He's very standoffish about it. Like, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. And you're
And
trying to kind of ease him into that
it
through
worked.
changing the energy. Yeah.
It worked 100%. And we didn't have any kind of like conversation. We didn't really. I think when I put it there, I set the intention of like, hey, help him heal whatever he needs to heal in his heart, kind of thing. And it's totally worked. I mean, he went from being somebody who could barely be patient enough with anybody in our family to even just have a conversation to
Yeah.
being completely calm and level-headed most of the time. I mean, he's still a teenager, he has hormones, but most of the time he's pretty even kilter now.
Yeah.
So it's pretty surprising, actually, because it's something I've grown up believing in, but like it's different when you put it into practice and then you actually see that it works. And then, of course, you tell other people about it, and they're like, "That's crazy. That doesn't work. It doesn't." It's like, I don't care what you think. I'm telling you, it did. So.
Well, what I know to be true doesn't have to be true for everybody.
Mhm.
And I don't worry about what's true for them.
Right.
If you simplify that part of your life gets a lot easier.
Yeah. It's true.
So,
Very
like
true.
I said, when I'm dealing with the stones, that's like, when you're dealing with like peacock ore. I don't know if they get all the colors in this.
A lot of it.
Peacock ore is actually a metal. It's not even a rock. This is more in the stone category because it's a derivative of iron.
Yeah.
And the color comes from tarnish. But the ancients saw this, and iron will draw and hold. So when you are using a piece of this on your heart or on your throat, it's going to help draw that energy out like a magnet.
Yeah.
That's causing you issues.
Yeah.
But it's called the chakra stone because it has almost every color in it. So it doesn't matter where you use it. This is a good general go-to stone.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I definitely at one time or another, like in the future, would like to have somebody who's a Reiki expert come on and talk a little bit about like just even like the foods. There's certain foods that are in alignment with certain chakras and colors, and like color therapy is really interesting. I never used to believe in it until I tried it. And really what made me interested in color therapy was marketing, when I realized like how much color therapy and color psychology goes into marketing, and that it actually does invoke different feelings in you.
Oh, yeah.
Like we used to have like our bedroom was painted red at one time in our life, and we could we slept like shit all the time because it's such a high energy color that you didn't feel like you were relaxed, and you didn't feel like you were in a spa. You just felt really like amped up, and it's a color of passion, which is great, but
that's why
not when you want to go to
red.
sleep.
Well, the thing is, you add red to that environment when you're looking for passion.
Correct.
But, something in the neutral tones, the lower greens, the blues are going to help with that.
Yeah, the stuff we have now is like in certain lights it looks silver, in other lights it looks lavender. So it's like a purplish, but it's a calming, it's a neutral. It really is a neutral at that point, right?
It doesn't evoke high or low energy.
No, it's just chill.
It's just
go chill. Yeah. No.
And like I said, if you want to add a little passion in the bedroom, then you throw up a couple of red tapestries, a couple of red candles,
right,
rose petals,
right.
But when the passion is done, you can get rid of all that and go to sleep. It's hard to do that when your walls are painted that way,
Yeah, no, it was jarring. Like you would come in to just lay down and chill, and you're like, oh, like the eyes are this big.
It screams. It's like, you're not supposed to sleep in here. This is supposed to be for something else.
Yeah, totally. What are your thoughts on just cleansing crystals? So I always thought this was really interesting because I'm not in tune enough with my crystals, I think, at this level to like feel a difference necessarily between when it's sat out in moonlight and when it hasn't. And part of me thinks, like, my logic goes like this: if energy works the way that I know it does, especially with Reiki and distance Reiki and stuff, that it doesn't matter if that stone is visible by the moon or not, that energy should charge it regardless, because energy, it doesn't need to be direct.
Well, the thing is, it's also about your intent to cleanse.
Right.
If you don't think it's getting moonlight because it's inside, then yeah, take it outside and put it there. If it
Right.
doesn't phase you to have it inside.
Right.
And it's not like it erases everything that's ever been done with that stone.
Hmm.
The full moon is the closing of the lunar cycle.
Right.
So it's going to finish off any negativity that's associated with a stone.
Right. And as it kind of
Or
like as it kind of rolls over to the new moon, it's sort of like refreshing that and saying like, okay, now we're ready for
exactly.
the next cycle of things to do,
Yeah,
whatever.
but it doesn't actually charge them because I hear that term. I get it charged in the full moon.
Right.
The full moon is the ending cycle, so
Mm.
it's almost impossible to charge something at the end.
Right. That makes
So
sense.
if you're going to charge, do that on a new moon.
Hmm.
That's the beginning of the lunar cycle. Okay.
Now, the other thing too is that I've heard that if you can't get your stuff into moonlight to cleanse it or charge it or what have you, that selenite is a charging plate. Like I bought this because I liked it and I wanted something to put some stuff into,
Yeah.
right? But like, everyone's like, oh yeah, no, this will cleanse and charge, different stones if you put it on there. It's a charging plate. It's a charging plate.
Well,
And
by
I'm
itself, it's not.
right.
Okay.
That's what I wondered is like, is
Well,
there any
I
truth
mean,
to that
a
or
lamp
not? Or
doesn't work unless you turn it on.
right,
So if you want that to be a charging plate, yeah, selenite is excellent to transfer a charge,
right,
but you need to charge it first.
right. You have to use that intention to charge it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You have to transfer the energy into it to hold it. But selenite holds a massive amount of energy.
yeah. Because I kind of thought like, okay, yeah, it sort of looks moonish, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, no, I heard that and I was like, oh, that's really interesting because I've heard some people say like, I can't get my stuff out into the moonlight without leaving it outside, and I'm nervous about leaving it outside because I don't want somebody to take it. So then, like,
Well, put it in
am
a
I never
window.
cleaning it?
Well,
Well,
just
even that, like,
putting it in a window
some
is
people don't have access to windows as much as others, so it's like,
okay. But honestly, it doesn't really matter. It's
right,
more about your mental makeup at that point. If
hmm,
you think that it's not going to work without it being in direct contact with the light,
then it won't.
then it won't.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's all about your mentality and how you see things.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
The full moon is going to happen whether there are clouds or not.
Right.
The clouds don't stop anything.
Well, and my thought was like, like everybody knows that the full moon has an effect on things. It obviously affects the tides and water. We're made up of what, 60, 70% water. It's been scientifically proven that the full moon affects people
Yeah.
because hospitals will staff up on full moon,
Well, it affects
weekends.
everything. Okay.
Right.
I mean, I've been training animals for 30 years too.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you right now that your dog or cat only has 3 known cycles of time:
Hmm.
light, dark, and month. The month comes from the full moon
Right.
because it's a regular occurrence in nature and it changes the gravitational forces of Earth, which animals still feel because they're not as evolved.
Right.
Humans can feel it too. We don't understand it.
Right.
Kind of like going through a haunted house and feeling ghostly fingers on you.
Right.
It freaks you out a little bit, which is why we go a little crazy during the end of the month.
Right.
Um, but yeah, the full moon's going to happen whether you're inside or outside, whether there's clouds or not.
Right.
You know, so if it's something you can break that mental cycle on of it's got to be charged in direct light,
Yeah.
then yeah, it will cleanse them, but it doesn't really charge them.
So do you think that, like, I've heard some people say that if you put certain stones in direct sunlight, that will actually like clear out whatever they've been programmed with. Do you think that's the case, or do you think
About the only thing it's going to do, because sun's just energy. It's
right?
just the energy source. Um, about all that's going to do is fade your stones,
Hmm.
because the UVA, UVB, and sunlight actually is like a bleaching agent for a lot of crystals.
Right.
So no, I don't think that having them exposed to sunlight, I think they will fade,
Right.
but I don't think that's the same as deprogramming.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
and erasing what's there.
Yeah,
And like I
because I've
said, you
heard
don't have
that.
to you don't have to clean, you don't have to clear every crystal.
Hmm.
If I find this in a creek, chances are there's no negativity associated with it. I don't need to
Right.
clear this. I don't need to cleanse this.
Right.
If someone hands me this one
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know that person that well, then I will probably go through and remove all negativity from this stone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And I would deposit it in a rock and then toss it in the yard.
Right.
It's a lot less complex than most people are trying to make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, I have a book, even. I think it's right. I have this book, and I got it because of the damn pictures and because I just thought it was interesting. But I have this book called 101 Power Crystals,
Yeah.
right? And the photography in it is just it's just amazing.
Oh, yeah. And like I
And
said, those stones are shaped and polished because they're looking for the visual effects, you
right.
know?
And it's just
And,
beautiful.
oh, yeah.
But if you were following this book and you're like, hey, I want something for prosperity, you're going through and you're like, oh, there's only 4 stones in here that you have to use, you know.
But that's that person's truth. That's
right.
not the universal truth.
Did I say that other one was lapis? I did. It's labradorite. I have lapis and I also have labradorite, but this big hunk is labradorite, not lapis. So I got that confused.
And
I do
again,
have lapis and I have sodalite too. It's hard to keep all these things like separated.
stop worrying about the names.
Yeah,
Go with
But
the
they are.
colors. Yeah, but again,
they're both
both of
fucking
those,
blue.
so they will both work in a transitional way.
Right.
Okay? So if you're looking to do something in your life where you're transitioning, going
Right.
from one career to the next, a piece of that around to help guide your way
Mhm.
that's charged with that intent
Yeah.
would help a lot.
Do you think that that certain crystals, like I have smoky quartz, it's actually like a Tibetan smoky quartz. I have that near my computer stuff because, I read somewhere that like it's supposed to dispel EMF, negative energy, all that kind of stuff.
It's black, right?
Yeah.
Black is a protection color.
Right.
Okay? It's a shielding color. It's an earth. So it doesn't matter if it's obsidian or quartz.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them are crystals, even though they're dark colored. They
Right.
will both do the same thing. It could be tourmaline. It could be, I think it's black sapphires.
Mm-hmm.
It could be black diamonds.
Right.
Again, it's the color and the type of material it is. It's a crystal that's dark colored. So
Yeah.
it would work well for that, but again, only if you charge it.
Right. Right.
Expecting it to do it by itself is like expecting your car to go to the grocery store without you.
Right. Let me plug in my headset. Sorry, hang on.
Oh, that's fine.
I just realized that my headset was gonna kick off here. Yeah, I mean it's weird, but like it definitely does work. I mean,
Yeah, and the thing is, if you charge it a little bit, it'll work even better.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's like it's so weird because a lot of people who will probably watch this or listen to this, there are a chunk of people who think that this is all crazy, right? At a certain point in my life, I would have thought that it was too if I didn't start to work with it and actually, study the differences and how I felt with something. And I guess you could say, well, is it a placebo because you think you are getting this or not? I don't know. But I just know that I've experienced, definite benefits from having some of these things around. And
Well, here's the thing. That's your truth.
right.
It doesn't matter if anyone else believes it.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
If you know your truth, then you can do more effect with the energy work that you want to do in your life.
True.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I learned a long time ago to stop worrying about what others thought of me.
Right.
If they don't like me, if they don't trust me, if they don't, and I haven't done anything negative to them, then it's their problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I screwed them over, there are going to be effects later on down the road for me.
Right.
But they have a reason then. Okay?
Mhm.
So I try to live as a good person. I'm not going to say that I am good. I have done stuff that is really bad, but I try to make up for it.
Right.
Okay? I try to live as a good person and try not to give anyone a reason to think of me negatively.
Mm-hmm.
If they do, doesn't bother me. I sleep fine every night.
Right.
And that's the key to living a lot with a lot less stress in your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you don't care, it's just you don't let it affect you.
Right.
You can only control your action and reaction to situations. So if someone calls me something that's offensive, I have to give them that power
Right.
to offend me.
Right. Right.
I can ignore the word and they have zero power over me.
You strike me as somebody who doesn't get offended.
Oh, I don't. Because honestly, you would have to be extremely close to me to hurt me.
Right.
And with the PTSD, I don't let anyone get that close.
Right.
It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I've got a piece of green calcite here.
Uh-huh.
This will be just as effective as a piece of green jade for prosperity.
Prosperity. Yeah.
Okay? So don't focus on the name, focus on the color and what that color means to you, because the color meaning is going to be a little different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to yourself before you listen to what's in a book. A
Mm-hmm.
book is there to guide. It is
Right.
not an absolute set of rules.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So you can listen to others, even listening to me, if you disagree with me on these subjects.
Mm.
That doesn't change what I think about it.
Right.
You can listen to me and get guidance from it and maybe simplify your life a little bit.
Right.
Or you can ignore me and it doesn't change your life at all, good
Right.
or bad.
So, if I was going to program a stone, right now I have 2 blue stones, I have a greenish brown stone,
Okay.
and I have a gray and pinkish purple stone,
Okay.
which to me
So,
is like very crown chakra-ish, but it's not
okay.
clear, it's very
No.
much
But again, it's a stone.
solid.
It's not a
Yeah.
crystal. Okay.
Right.
So
If
that's
I
some sort of agate, it looks like. But
Yeah. So if I wanted to program one of these stones to bring podcast prosperity,
okay.
walk me through that, what that looks like.
Well, now we're getting into the new age era. Computers didn't exist 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago when this all started.
Right.
So computers would be communication, correct?
Yep.
What do you think of for a color on the word communication?
Well, I personally I think of blue simply because I'm trained again. Throat chakra is blue.
Well, the thing
Blue
is,
means
throat
communication.
chakra is blue because you're transitioning
Right.
from one to another.
Right.
So
Right.
you're going to take a blue stone because that's going to be your communication stone. Now you have to figure out which side of you is your receiving for energy and which side is the release for energy.
Okay.
And this goes back to whether you're right-handed or left-handed,
Right.
or if you're ambidextrous, then it doesn't matter, but you're still going to naturally go to one side when something's thrown to you.
Yeah, there's probably still a dominant there. Yeah. So like I'm right-handed. I write right-handed.
Okay, so your strong side is going to be your receiving side.
Okay.
So that's going to be an empty hand.
Yep.
You're going to take the energy, feel the energy coming into that hand, going up your arm, through your body, down your left, and holding that stone in your left hand, it becomes a depository. It becomes a well that you're filling up with that energy and intent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And this works for any talisman you want to make. As long as you know the intent and you're happy with your stone or crystal selection
Mm-hmm.
and the colors that are in it,
Yep.
all you do is draw the energy from your environment, because you have two choices: take it from yourself and be
Right.
drained,
Right. Right.
or act as a conduit, because just like the rocks, stones, and crystals, we are a battery and a conduit.
Yep. That's what I'm used to. Is
Yeah.
they teach you in Reiki to be a conduit.
Yeah, because you would kill yourself trying to heal someone with Reiki if you
Right.
didn't pull energy from around you.
Right.
So again, you're just going to do that meditative process where you see and feel the energy coming into your right, and if you're left-handed, it would be the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And then have it flow down and stop in that stone. That's why you hold the stone in your left hand.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to take the stone, I'm going to put it in the left, and that's how I'm going to hold it.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When, as you're doing this, you're going to actually feel the stone get heavier.
Well, not only heavier, but like my left hand right now, where I'm holding this,
Yeah.
feels like it's like I'm having like a burning sensation.
Yeah.
Like it
So
feels
it's
hot.
getting to the point where it can't take any more.
Yeah. It's only a little
So
guy. It's a little
yeah.
guy.
But the thing is, that little guy can last for quite a while.
Right. And I don't know if this is sodalite or not. I'm not sure, but and it's probably hard to see, but this is actually has traces of like gold veins running through the blue. It's like white, gold, and blue. I think.
Might be more lapis then.
Maybe it is. Yeah. Maybe it's lapis.
But again, don't
Oh yeah,
focus
yeah,
on the
yeah.
name.
Sodalite is more dull, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is lapis.
And
Yeah.
sodalite's going to have a lot more white through it.
Yeah. So.
But again, don't focus so much on the name as
Right.
that. Now, what's going to happen is once you charge that stone,
Mhm.
it's going to release the energy as it's needed for that purpose.
Yep.
Okay? So if you have 3 days where your computer isn't on and you're not doing anything with it,
Right.
it's not using any energy.
Right.
Again, you want to keep it with you or near your computer when you're doing things like this.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it down here with my setup, but
And
so-
you'll pick it up from time to time and it'll feel a little too light.
yeah.
You simply just need to recharge it.
Right.
Now, because you're not having this come in contact with negativity, you don't need to ever cleanse that.
Hmm.
Now, if someone comes in and a friend of yours is over there and you guys get in an argument, he picks it up and he's like, screw you, man, I'm right. He's just charged that with negativity.
Right.
Now you'll need to cleanse it.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Just,
Yeah.
because people pick up things when they get angry.
Sure.
So that's one thing you want to focus on is, and, like I said, if you're trying to get rid of negativity, you're going to do this exact same process, but you're going to use a rock.
Right.
And again, you're going to fill it up with that left side.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another thing is that you can charge a stone with energy.
Mm-hmm.
No purpose whatsoever. Everyone has days where they feel drained. Okay.
Yep.
For whatever reason, you lost a lot of energy while you slept. And for everybody you ask, there's 6 different answers. So I'm not going to get into why you lost energy sleeping.
Right.
But on the days when you're having a good day, or that you wake up and you feel a little too overcharged,
Yep.
anxiety comes not from negativity, but just from excess energy. That's why batteries blow up.
Right.
Batteries don't want to blow up, but if you overcharge them, that's what happens.
Right.
When we get overcharged, then we can wake up antsy. We can wake up with anxiety. We can wake up twitchy.
Yeah.
Dump that excess energy into this by closing your right hand.
Mm-hmm.
This way you're not drawing from the environment. You're simply siphoning off
Of
the
you.
excess that you have.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Now, if you want to charge a stone for those days when you are drained, especially like tarot readers and divinity people, healers, they get burned out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So on a day when you're not doing any of that kind of work, then you can take that crystal, put it in, simply draw energy and fill it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to stay in that crystal until you want it.
Right.
So the day comes when you're a little drained and you need it. It goes into the right hand. You close it because you're not trying to pull energy from, you're just trying to charge quickly off of this stone.
Right.
You also close this hand. You close your left because you're not letting energy escape now.
Right.
And you simply focus on bringing the energy out of the crystal and into you.
Hmm.
And that's how simple it is.
Yeah. I mean, it seems so many people complicate, everything, right? Like,
Well, that's because if it's extra complicated,
Yeah.
they're the only expert.
right. Yeah.
So that goes a lot
True.
more to ego. I got rid
Right.
of ego a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care
like-
what people think.
Even meditation, right? Like, I used to really overthink meditation to the point where I was like, I'm not doing it right,
Well,
And
meditation
then
is to bring
somebody
balance.
walked me through it and in a simple way, right?
Yeah.
And removed a lot of the bullshit. And it was like, yeah, guess what? You meditated. It only took
Yeah.
you a minute.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, meditation brings you to balance.
Right.
Just like your energy. There are days when you're going to have too much energy. If you have too much energy, those are the days when you're prone to anxiety attacks. Those are the days where you're prone to confusion and indecisiveness.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
So, by siphoning off a little of that energy, you can get to a normal amount and be balanced.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is if you don't know how to get rid of that energy, and you're not a fan of exercise, because exercise will get rid of a lot of energy.
Movement. Yep.
Yeah. I used to. I don't anymore. I've destroyed my body repeatedly from being incredibly stupid. And we won't even. That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole other podcast.
But like I said, just keep things simple. Don't overcomplicate your life. Find balance. Use the stones to balance. Use the stones as tools. Use your crystals as tools, and get rid of your negativity by just using a rock.
Right. Cool. I like it. Well, I charged this rock. Fuck! I just threw it. I charged this rock for podcast prosperity, so I'm gonna leave it here and hopefully people will like what they've heard and share and comment and all those things that you do when you like stuff. And hopefully, some people have gotten some clarity and some guidance. I mean, like I said, this stuff is confusing. Even people who I think work with stones on a regular basis, it can be confusing and overwhelming. And I think, the way you've presented it with just focusing on like, hey, okay, what kind of stone is it, right? And what's the clarity of it, and that's the purpose that it's used for, what color and what intention. I mean, it's just an easy way of breaking it down where it doesn't have to be so damn complex, and you don't need a book like this unless it's going to be on your coffee table because it's pretty.
Yeah, well, like I said, aesthetics is
figure it out.
Aesthetics,
Yeah.
If you have a nice piece of polished amethyst or a raw piece of polished amethyst, they're both going to work the same.
Yep.
One is prettier than the other.
Yeah, I don't have it down here, but I got it's partially, I think it's a cracked geode of amethyst. So the outside of it's very gray and like rough, and then the inside, but it's almost like a bowl. It looks almost like naturally like a bowl because of the way the geode was cracked. And I love that crystal. Love it. Like every morning, it's on my nightstand actually, and every morning I wake up and look at it and I just think, God, that is such a beautiful stone, I have certain ones that I have like a lot of affinity for. And they're just beautiful. I'll tell you that I went for probably several years where when I would sleep at night, I couldn't remember my dreams. Like I knew I had dreams, but I couldn't remember them. And then I, had read somewhere, obviously, that amethyst was used to help remember dreams. And so I'm like, okay, I found this amethyst. It really, jumped out at me. I'm like, okay, you're going to help me remember these dreams, right? Because that's what you're supposed to do. And I set it down. And every single night when I dream, I wake up, and I would say 90% of the time I remember it detailed, very detailed. And again, it's like, is it the crystal that did that? Is me setting the intention of like, hey, I really want to remember these dreams? I don't know, but it works. I remember them now. So just it's interesting. It's definitely interesting.
Well, like I said, just break things down to its simplest form. Find the physical reality of it.
Yeah.
Stop dwelling in concepts.
Right.
You will drive yourself crazy trying to follow all the concepts in metaphysical.
Listen, I'm an overthinker, so I'm one of those people that go down the rabbit hole like tenfold trying to figure out like every nook and cranny and understanding it. And 9 times out of 10, it takes somebody like you to be like, no. Like, just look at this simple.
I mean, a lot of times people will make things very complex so that they're the only expert on it.
Right.
It doesn't need to be that way. Okay. Mm-hmm. If someone tells you, oh, you can't do this unless you have my class, that's a red flag for me.
Right.
I can do it with or without your class. Your class may make it easier for me.
Right.
But don't tell me what I can and cannot do based on the knowledge that you hold that I don't.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes total sense. But yeah, no, so I appreciate, you coming on and talking about all this stuff. It's super interesting. I think that I think a lot of people who work with stones probably, like me, have overcomplicated it and overthought it, and like, oh, I need 75 stones to accomplish this thing when you probably only need a few, right?
Yeah.
And
If you want 75 stones, go get 75
yeah,
stones.
right, right, right.
I mean, I
But
sell
it's not
crystals, so
necessary. Yeah, it becomes more of a thing that you admire and that you find beauty in,
Oh,
less of I
and
need this.
yeah, and one little thing to finish out. It doesn't matter if you find a stone, you buy a stone, or you are given a stone.
Mhm.
There is nothing to those things where you have to be given a stone for it to work.
All right.
That's garbage. The stone is going to do its job regardless. It's whether or not you charged it with intent
Yeah.
and if it was given to you with hidden agendas.
Right.
So, if you get a stone from someone you really don't know that well, I would probably make sure that doesn't have any negativity in it.
Yeah.
But if it's someone that you know and trust, why should you have to worry about it?
Right.
Don't overthink.
Right. Well, I'm virtually giving everyone this stone. So like my shit. So I can make more videos and
There
make
you
more
go.
content. There you go.
There you go.
That's the prosperous thing that I've programmed into this, is that you're all gonna virtually like my shit. No, but I appreciate you coming on. I enjoyed talking to you.
I enjoyed
And
talking about it and talking with you about it.
yeah, no, it's good. I want to have you back later and talk more about metaphysics. Wally has made some videos that are just really simplistic, but amazing in how they explain things when it comes to a lot of different things. And so he's a very, very interesting guy. He has a lot of experience with a lot of different metaphysics and things. And one of these other times, we're gonna have to really dive into just your whole belief system and things. Because when I first met Wally, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm a witch," I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "But I thought, but you, no, I don't understand." So at some point, I want to dive deeper into that and just kind of address that. And there's just a lot of different things that we can talk about. We talk a lot off the podcast about several different things, so I definitely want to have you back and talk about some more things in the future, and hopefully you'll come back. So
Oh, anytime, man.
I appreciate it. But yeah, so that's it. The next podcast probably will be out in the next week or so. Not quite sure the topic yet. I have a couple things on my plate that I'm going to try to talk to some people and get some things scheduled. But as always, comment, like, share. If you comment, I'll get back to you. We'll answer some questions. If you have anything specific for Wally, comment below any of the posts where you find this content, and I will make sure that he sees it one way or another. And I appreciate everybody for tuning in or listening or watching or however you found us. I appreciate you. So thank you. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right.